Right.
right? And so
Yeah.
you could easily take the same things you're learning about people and give them, I don't know, positive messaging or whatever it is that you think might actually,
Yeah.
how do we get them to think critically? How do we get them to
Yeah.
default to think critically? Because,
Yeah.
you know, um, you know, before you click no on this, have you thought about blank, blank, and blank? And you try to get the mind triggering on thinking or whatever. I don't know what that is because I think part of the problem with all the discussion we have is that people who understand the way we think get it right away. The problem is how do I get the people who aren't quite there to default to that, right? I did this speech today on semantics. I did one a while back on steel manning and trying to understand the logic of other people.
Yeah.
And I think really it's difficult if you're not of a mindset to be curious about why someone thinks the way they do. You
Yeah.
default to judgment. And how do I withhold judgment and stay in curiosity?
Yeah. Um, that's a different level of skill. I'm going down to more of the primitive brain. So for instance, like one of my challenges, and I think your challenge too, is we think and it's fun to think and build cool plans, but our execution skills are typically pretty low, right? Um, and so I'm learning how to hack that because what you have to do is you kind of have to lie to your brain and say, "Oh, I'm not going to do the whole task, but what I'm going to do is just one little tiny baby step." And then you just do that because it's easy, and you get a little tiny bit of dopamine hit. Because what your brain does, dopamine is a pursuit drug. So what it means is if you're at point A and you're going to point B, if your brain sees the fact that, hey, I'm making progress to point B, like real progress, it'll give you a little drug. It'll give you a little boost. It's like, yeah, yeah, go that direction, actually. If you're going the wrong direction, then it literally, you don't get that dopamine and it starts to become painful, actually. But here's the cool thing is the more pain that you go through and then figure it out, now you get a really big dopamine hit. So there's no getting around the suffering part.
Well, and that's part of what I think our difficulty is that the concept of hard work
Yeah.
was that doing something that was hard had value, not just
Yes.
because of the output of the hard work, but because
Yeah.
of the change made to you in doing
Yeah.
the hard work.
Right. Right. It literally transforms you. That's why jujitsu, I brought it up again, is so important
Wow, I
because
haven't heard
jujitsu,
that mentioned in a couple of weeks. That's wow.
I know a couple of weeks, because it's hard, right? And it's physically taxing and and it just breaks your ego down,
Actually,
right?
I
And
actually
then
brought it
you
up yesterday.
there you go.
We're-
And
we're-
it's
yeah, we're-
and it's like, Chris, I can't believe you're not going there training because Alan, he's a coral belt, right? There's maybe 20 or 30 in the whole world like him, and you have him like right there in small classes, actually. Dude, you got to go. That'll going to jiu-jitsu will teach you everything about everything. There's nothing that jiu-jitsu won't solve because it's hard and it's
yep.
frustrating. And
But
then finally, you break through, and you're like, oh my gosh, now I see the errors in my ways. And it's some of the things are so non-intuitive. You'd never figure them out on your own.
some of the things are so non-intuitive.
Yeah, exactly.
Flesh that out.
Like, okay, like an example, like let's say you're in the guard, you're on the bottom.
Okay.
Most people think that if you're on the bottom, you're in trouble.
Okay.
Not if you know jujitsu, because there's a bunch of attacks I can launch, right? I can choke you with my legs by using a triangle choke, and it's a series of steps that you would probably never figure it out. But it's like in literally 2 to 3 seconds, if you know the techniques, the guy on top of you is asleep, and you're underneath. And it's like, whoa, I never would have seen that path forward. And it's hard, but it's like, man, oh man, does it work? So that's just one example. That's one fleshing it out.
Okay.
And the only reason he knows it is because his master taught him that. And they figured this thing out over 100 years ago. The Japanese guy brought it over, and the Brazilians just through many, many fights and just over 100 years, they're just like, oh, we see this pattern. Let's try this. And it's like around and around you go, just like the SEALs learn, right? Every time they go into combat, they come back and they do a debrief and they say, wait a minute, two of our guys died. What happened? Let's like really spend hours figuring out what went wrong.
You said earlier, so we were talking about two alpha males. You're talking about the cats, and you're just saying like
Yeah, two
alpha males,
cats. Yeah.
right? Um, how would you quantify special forces people? Are they all alphas or are they all something else? Because they all have to work together with different levels of competency, and you know, how would you characterize those?
Freaks of nature and
Okay.
heavily alpha. But here's the thing, Chris. When they're together on a mission, they would die for each other. They would love each other like
but but
nobody's business.
but that doesn't. Okay, I get that, but that isn't what
Okay.
makes them an alpha, right? Dying for each other to me isn't what makes you an alpha. And the reason why I'm saying this is normally our the way we're thinking, we know this is now wrong, is that the alpha male is the one in charge, right? We now know with the studies of wolves and stuff that the pack leader is often not the alpha, but the beta or a different one, right? Usually the smartest one ends up being the leader in those groups, and the biggest ones end up defending the leader.
I don't know about that.
No,
That's
that so
something
that
they think.
so the idea of the alpha male in the wolf setting, right? And what came about with a lot of research, and apparently the man who did the research spent the rest of his life trying to teach people that the popularized view is wrong. Basically,
Oh, interesting.
the
Oh,
largest wolf in the pack may be the alpha and the strongest, but he is not, in fact, the strongest is not the alpha. Maybe that's what I'm trying to get.
okay.
So the idea was like the strongest one was like more the enforcer, and the wisest one, I guess you would say, maybe is, I'm not sure if that's the right way to quantify it, would be the one who was the leader. And the alpha made sure that the leader, sorry, not the alpha, the biggest one always made sure that the leader was the one in charge, and everyone listened and deferred to them.
Well,
And
that kind of makes sense. Like think in terms of football. It's like the quarterback is sort of the brain of the thing,
yeah, well,
and everybody else is like their mission is protect the
I
quarterback,
don't know
right?
if you,
Because if he goes down, we
what,
lose.
do you remember when the Lakers here, when we had Shaq and Kobe on the same team, and they were button heads in the early days. I mean, they were both kind of the head of the team, right?
Yeah.
And I think the reason why I'm wondering that is one of the things that I've always found interesting about special forces or any kind of specialist team, and it doesn't have to be military or not. Generally speaking, everyone's highly competent. Everyone is
Highly,
highly aligned in goals. Um,
highly.